Hello and welcome back. In the last section, we took care of a few outstanding issues with our sign up, sign out, and essentially the sign in flows. And we also looked at a couple of styling issues as well. Okay, let's continue this journey. And the next thing we want to do is look at the identity workflow. Okay, so essentially what I mean by that is that when we say sign in, what happens behind the scenes. Okay, so for that, what we're going to do here is let's head over back to our app. And I'm going to open the inspection tabs, right, and especially the network tab here. And let me clear the logs first. And I also have preserve logs here, so it'll preserve the logs or the trails between two domains. Okay, so essentially when I go to Auth0, whatever happens there, all those calls that are coming back and forth will be recorded here. So let me go ahead and sign in now. And essentially, what happens right now is it generates a couple of login calls here. So if you see here, it is actually calling, let's scan this for a moment. So it is essentially trying to contact this particular endpoint here, which we had essentially configured as our domain, right? And it's calling the authorized endpoint on that domain, and it's passing the client ID, which we had essentially specified. And we're also saying the redirect URL has to be essentially localhost 3000 in this case. Okay, and all that is done by our Auth0 provider here. So if I go back into fe_indicafe, and inside of index.js, we have done all this wiring up here. All this stuff is done by our Auth0 provider. Okay, behind the scenes, it does a whole lot of heavy lifting for us, and it's pretty transparent in nature. So a lot of the stuff, heavy lifting, gets taken care of there. And once that is done, okay, let's go ahead and continue to click on continue after giving in the password and the user ID, and let's see what we actually get in terms of the response back from Auth0. So Auth0 essentially calls us back with a code. Let's see what code we get here. So we essentially call this part, and I think we got a code in here. No, it was a two. Essentially, there is multiple redirects here, and this is essentially the OpenID connect and the OAuth flow, and that's actually happening. And the OAuth flow happens the first time around, where we actually seek the consent of the user. The Auth0 platform seeks the consent of the user to share our profile with this application. That's the Auth2 in action, and that's implemented by Auth0. And then this one is essentially OpenID Connect, essentially the authentication that's happening here. Okay, and post login, there are a lot of things that happen here. So this is one of the redirects, and I think this is also another redirect. Let's see the response headers here. So if I go here, there is a redirect here. I think what was the status code here? Okay, it was actually 200. Okay, and this was a redirect. Okay, you see here, and it was redirecting to this particular URL, okay, which is this one. And this one essentially goes ahead and it does a post. Is that a post request? We would know from the general. Yeah, this is a get actually. So it essentially does a get by passing the state information, and yeah, that's a state. So this is the OpenID Connect that's happening behind the scenes. And after this, we actually get a code, okay? And yeah, I think this is the one. And there is another call here that's happening, okay? And yeah, it's essentially to this Auth0 endpoint with this login and state, and to the login endpoint, obviously. And this is again going to redirect us back to our website, our domain. Right, application domain, and the location is this. Where's the location? Yeah, I think it's the internal redirect, and that's the authorized call, and with resume, and that's where we have it here. Oops, sorry about that. Didn't mean to double click that. And if you go to this call, okay, this is again a get call, all right, with the particular state, and this one now gets us back something. And what are we getting here in response? It is again a redirect. Yeah, it is again a redirect. Okay, and this time around we are redirected to our website, okay, with this particular code. And what happens is our website now calls the token endpoint somewhere down the line here, okay, and it also uses this code and passes the client ID. We should be here somewhere. Token, yeah, this is right here. Okay, so this must be the options call. I think it does a pre-flight call, right? I think this is options, yeah. So to essentially to get to know that, this is a course call, cross-origin request call, and essentially make sure that this call can go through. And if you look at the response headers, we have the access control allow headers and allow methods, and allow origin is set to star here. Okay, we can also make sure this shouldn't be star in my opinion. It should be a little more restrictive in my opinion. It cannot be this permissive for sure. We'll take a look at that. Okay, there might be some setting that we may have forgotten to essentially set inside of Auth0 platform. And so this is the options call, and after this gives us a 204. Auth0 provider actually goes ahead and does a post on the token endpoint, and while doing so, it actually sends the client ID, okay, and the code which we got here somewhere earlier, okay, and then essentially provides other information like redirect URI and all that stuff, and the grant type, typical OAuth stuff, Auth2. And what else do we have? And in response, we get let's see what we're getting here in response. We're getting an access token, okay? So the access token essentially is a JWT token, and JWT stands for JSON Web Token, okay? And let's head over to jwt.io just to get a quick feel of what it is, okay? And inside of here, it gives us a debugger as well as a quick understanding of what JWT tokens are in terms of their constituents. So at the very high level, it actually has a header, and that specifies an algorithm and type. And type will, for the most part, will be JWT. Algorithm could differ, and in this case, it's HS256. And it could also be RS256 based on whether we are using public key, private key infrastructure to generate and sign these tokens. But right now, this is actually HS256, and the payload could contain anything. Right now, it is containing a subject, which is essentially an identity for a particular user, and let's say in this case it's John Doe, and then ID is essentially issued at. There could also be expiry here to essentially mention how long a particular token is valid. And finally, there is a signature here, which is a combination of your base64 encoded header, payload, and then you have a secret in case you want to encode it using a secret, and essentially that, and then you just generate a signature here, okay? And this is what the signature is. And if you look at the encoded token here, all these constituent components, header, payload, and signature, are delimited by a dot here, okay? Every dot essentially delimits the header, payload, and the signature, okay? And in this case, this is the header, this is the payload, and this is the signature, okay? And anytime, let's say you make it Jane Doe here, okay, our payload is going to change and the signature also is going to change. So with this in mind, let's go over back to our app and let's parse this token in here, okay? Let's do a preview. I'm going to go ahead and copy this stuff and paste it in here, okay? Let me go ahead and paste it in here. I think there might be a typo. Let me strip off this particular thing. Super. Now we have essentially the token here. So this is the ID token, essentially a representation of the user's information in its entirety that is maintained by Auth0. And every time we log in, we get the ID token here. And And there is another token called access token, and that will definitely come to that at some point in time during the discussion of our development and integration with the APIs. And let's see, so essentially it gives us a gravatar. This is something that we can configure. It also gives us a nickname. We can actually go ahead and set this up in our Auth0 platform, by the way. It also gives us a nonce, issued at, and generally these tokens are valid for, I think, about 24 hours. We can always go ahead and change that setting. So essentially, if you're logged in now, you'll be logged in for 24 hours from now, all right? And after that, you have to re-log in. So, and then if you look at the header here, there's an interesting stuff. This is actually algorithms RS-256, not the HS-256 as we saw before, okay? And they're also using a key ID here, which is used to look up the certificate for signing up, for signing this particular, or essentially signature, for creating the signature, right? So this is essentially a hash using this particular RSA algorithm, okay? RS-256. And yeah, so it's not encoded properly. It's giving us a warning, so adding it must be omitted. Okay, we have added something in here right now, which is probably making it, yeah, probably this one. I think we don't need this, and I think we have another one at the very end. Okay, super. I think now we should be good. Okay, super. Alright, and it also says signature verified. So essentially, if I go ahead and change this here, let's say make this 6, it says invalid signature now, okay? And that is an indication to the receiver that somebody has tampered with it, and this payload is not essentially valid, or it is being tampered with. So that is something that you get tamper-proof tokens with JWT. That's one of the key elements of using JWT, and they're all self-describing tokens, and we can essentially describe a lot of things here in terms of the claims, which are going to talk about sometime soon. And let's head over back to our Auth0 platform here before we wind up this particular discussion. And in here, in the application details, I can actually go ahead and do a few branding activities. For example, if you want to have a logo in here for our particular website, we can do so. Right now, whenever we log in, all we see is the Auth0 branding, right? So if you want to essentially change that, we could do so. So let me go over to Unsplash here, unsplash.com. Let me search for this one. And okay, let's pick this. And I'm going to copy this stuff, copy this URL, okay, and head over to application details and essentially paste it in here. And that's how it looks like right now. And I'm going to go ahead and save that, save the changes. And the next time we log in, we should be able to see that come up. Okay, let's try that. I'm going to sign out and sign back in. All right, sign in. Oh, not yet. Looks like that's not taken effect yet. I would have loved to see that here. Okay, interesting. I hope. Let's try that again. Maybe it sometimes caches that information. Okay, so it might have a time to live setting there and interfering with the rendering of the right image. Let's see. Hopefully this is taking a while. I hope I am connected to the internet, because this does need the internet. Turns out there is another setting in here in the Auth0 setup. Okay, if I head over to the user management and to branding, okay, let's head over to branding in here. And inside of that, let's go to universal login. That's what we are actually using right now. Okay, and let's head over down here, and then we have the customization for the company logo. So what I'm going to do here is essentially go to the picture that I was earlier referring to and get the URL and head over back to Auth0 branding section and just paste it in here. Okay, and I'm not going to essentially fiddle with the other settings here in terms of the page background. I'll just retain the defaults. Okay, go ahead and save this, and we should be good here. So let's head over back to our localhost 3000, and if I go ahead and sign in now, I should hopefully be able to see the logo. Yes, I can. So this is our branded logo, okay? That represents our essentially entity on Auth0 platform, okay? Super. So we are able to log in, we are able to do some branding stuff, and essentially we have also discovered the ID token in terms of what it represents and what it contains, right? And its constituents, and it's in the form of the headers and the payload and the signature. And essentially looked at the encoded and the decoded forms, okay? And we also made sure how to verify the validity of the signatures, all right? So we'll take a brief pause here, and the next time we're going to come back, we're going to look at another aspect of identity management, and we'll essentially look at this particular information and see how we can represent it as a component on our app here, okay? So let's take a brief pause here and come back soon and discuss the next steps.